She could read his mind, a gift she thought a blessing. But one stray thought revealed a terrifying truth. That her world, her life, everything she knew, was a game. Chapter 1. The Lady Miko who loves breaking into homes to soak in hot springs. Inazuma, Grand Narukami Shrine. Cherry blossoms fell silently and the moonlight was as clear as water. Atop the mountain peak all was silent. Yet, beneath the sacred branches of the sacred sakura, the air hung heavy and humid. Within a veil of misty vapor, a pink figure sat, her voice carrying a silver, coquettish laugh. Who would have thought someone actually liked nine-tailed foxes this much, and white stockings? People like these? Surely not. Oh, so they are meant to be torn. How interesting. She murmured to herself as she turned a page in the picture book she held. Seeing the contents within, she let out occasional bursts of laughter. As she chuckled, a single pink tail floated atop the surface of the hot spring water. After a moment, the woman set the book aside, speaking to herself with a hint of dissatisfaction. That fellow stopped updating at the critical part again. What a wicked man. No sooner had the words left her lips than a voice echoed from nearby. I'd rather not be discussed behind my back by a stinky fox who sneaks into other people's bathrooms without permission. Yae set down the dinner he had ordered from Uyu restaurant looking helpless. This place was a little pocket dimension he had carved out using the power of the sacred sakura. Though it was technically located within the Grand Narukami Shrine, he had paid for the usage rights with his own manuscript fees. Therefore this was his home. Yet, the Lady Guuji was forever using her fox magic to pick the lock and break in, commandeering the hot spring in his front courtyard. While he didn't mind catching a glimpse of her smooth porcelain back, still, who wouldn't be angry at such a blatant home invasion? Hearing Yae's voice, Yae Miko turned around with a delighted smile. It can't be helped. While the springs at Isa Bathhouse are quite nice, I tend to shed far too much fox fur after soaking there. Speaking of which, Master Yae, when will your new work be released? As the editor-in-chief of the Yae publishing house, the responsibility of chasing deadlines was one she took very seriously. Of course, her main reason for being here was... She looked at Yae, who was standing in the pavilion. Seeing him shift his gaze away, she gave a flirtatious smirk. Why so shy? Are you going to pull up your long johns and pretend nothing happened? Yae's face darkened, and he felt like he was about to have a breakdown. When the hell did I ever take off my long johns? This woman, why does she only learn the bad habits and never the good ones? I'm certain I never wrote that line in my novels. Where did she even learn that vocabulary? Does this world even have a long john setting? Wait, that's not right. Even if there was such a setting, it should be in Liyue. This sly fox, she gets the better of me every single time. Yae Miko crossed her arms, pressing a hand to her cherry-red lips to hide a faint smile. Indeed, she could hear this man's inner thoughts. She remembered it well. 3 years ago, she had discovered a man in the forest dressed in very strange attire. To use the vocabulary she had since learned, he wore a white shirt, suit pants, and a genuine leather belt. Such an outfit appearing in Inazuma was conspicuous to say the least. One had to understand that the people of Inazuma City mostly wore kimonos crafted by Ogura Textiles and Kimonos. Yae's clothes were of a style that was virtually unprecedented. Even after living for 500 years, she couldn't recognize the fabric. It didn't feel like the high-end silk made from silk flowers, though it was incredibly soft to the touch. Furthermore, when she had awakened Yae, she had been shocked to hear a voice talking to itself. Having lived for 5 centuries, she was no longer the little fox who used to crawl onto people's shoulders. She quickly surmised that she was hearing the man's heart voice. Immediately after, she heard words that utterly overturned her worldview. Holy crap, I transmigrated! And into the Genshin Impact world I helped create? Damn it, didn't the company just register the metaverse trademark? Besides, current technology isn't even close to achieving full dive tech. Where's the logout button? Where's the operation panel? Son of a playing dirty, are we? There isn't even a logout button? I'm just a low-level artist, don't do this to me. At the time, Yae's internal monologue had left her in a state of profound shock. Later, she came to understand that Yae did not belong to this world. In his original world, he had been an employee of a company called MiHoYo. He usually worked on scripts and original character design. It seemed he had arrived here after his body collapsed from overwork. The most shocking realization of all was that the world she lived in was actually a game world. How was she supposed to accept that? It was all fake. Everything in this world was a lie. She was fake. A was fake. And even Lady Kitsune Saigu was fake. In an instant, her entire world had crumbled. But then, a single thought from Yae's heart had calmed her down. The world of Genshin Impact? I suppose that isn't unacceptable. At least it's more relaxed and happy than the world outside. I just feel bad for the cat in my apartment. I hope it doesn't starve. Was the real world truly filled with such misfortune? This question lingered in her mind, piquing her curiosity. And because this man, despite facing such a life-altering catastrophe, still worried about his cat at home, she assumed he must be a gentle person. And so she made her decision. From that day forward, she brought Yae back to the Grand Narukami Shrine. Slowly, through Yae, she learned a great deal. From 9-year compulsory education to cram schools, from the 996 work schedule to sudden deaths from overwork, from mortgages and car loans. Only then did she realize how difficult it was to be an adult. However, she also gained a lot of interesting knowledge. For instance, she learned about files labeled study materials found on a thing called a computer, including things that left even a 9-tailed fox like her too embarrassed to keep listening. Because he had touched upon such knowledge, she stopped exploring his thoughts regarding his original world. Instead, she focused more on Yae's thoughts regarding the continent of Teyvat. For example, the concept of leveling up. It was her first time learning such things. It turned out her body possessed something called an EXP bar. By constantly slaying monsters, she could accumulate experience. To go any further, she needed an item called a dragon hair's false fin. Yae was different. Within his body was something called original resin. Only with this resin could one harvest leyline rewards. Over the past 3 years, Yae seemed to have secretly challenged many monsters, and a great deal of the materials he gathered were kept in a chest. As the prestigious Guuji of the Grand Narukami Shrine, how could she possibly commit theft? And so, she understood. She had to find a way to keep Yae by her side. Then she would slowly win his consent. Enjoying the story? Find out what Yae Miko plans next and get early access to new chapters by supporting me on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/flowkixie to continue the adventure. Your support makes these stories possible.